The Bad Batch, Episode 12, The Outpost. We finally get the long-anticipated and hyped Crosshair episode, and boy, let me tell you right now, it does not disappoint. Eager to start his new mission, Crosshair is assigned by the Empire under the command of Lieutenant Nolan to the snowy world of Barton 4, where he's to guard some very important cargo on a remote outpost until it's transferred the following week. And this opening already tells you everything you need to know. Clones unhappy with the forced retirement put upon them, Nolan's and the Empire's distaste for clones, and seeing them almost as subhuman. So much so that when they travel to an ice-cold planet, it's only Nolan wearing any sort of snow weather gear whatsoever, while Crosshair and the rest of the clones continue wearing their normal everyday uniform. And once at the outpost on Barton 4, they're met with a surprise, as not only is the outpost not guarded, but it turns out that there are only 3 capable bodies on location, with Commander Mayday among them, while the rest of his men have all died after constant attacks by local raiders in trying to protect this sacred cargo. And this is visualized with all of the helmets present of his fallen soldiers put upon around the outpost. And just like Crosshair, Mayday and his men are also not wearing any sort of snow weather gear, and if anything, they had to make their own just to get by. Mayday's uniform I'm especially digging, as despite it's mainly wrapped with bandages and cloth, giving it this sort of mummy clone kind of vibe, it also illustrates how truly deprived he's been on this outpost, not getting any sort of resources or reinforcements by the Empire and only being ignored at each of his requests. But what I found especially dumb by the Empire here is, why does Nolan arrive with only 2 clone troopers and Crosshair? Especially if they know how frequently this outpost keeps getting attacked, so that already threw me off right from the get-go. Then there's this perfect interaction between Mayday and Nolan, who demands that Mayday and the remaining clones he has under him do a better job in protecting the cargo from insurgents. So, in response to this, Mayday asks Nolan if he ever fought in the Clone Wars, causing him to genuinely struggle to come up with any sort of answer. I love it. We later have some one-on-one scenes between Crosshair and Mayday, who explains to him the situation of the outpost, like about the raider attacks and how many men he's lost defending the secret so-called cargo. Which, when Crosshair asks him what's inside this cargo, Mayday responds with admitting that he has no idea, but wonders that exact question every single day. And yeah, how could you not blame him? I would have definitely tried to take at least a peek by now. Then soon after, the outpost is attacked once again, this time claiming the lives of Hex and Veach, Mayday's last remaining soldiers. Not only that, but the raiders also manage to steal some of the cargo, of which Nolan demands that Mayday and Crosshair go out there and recover it. Oh, and did I mention they have to do it all by themselves with no reinforcements or backup whatsoever? Not even with a vehicle too, they gotta go on foot. Which, once again, goes back to my earlier point on why did Nolan only bring 2 clone troopers with him here in the first place? Like, for example, had he brought at least a platoon with him, then they wouldn't be in this situation. But now, because of not doing that, it's Crosshair and poor Mayday who need to deal with cleaning up his mess. During their journey to the raider base, Crosshair gets to know more about Mayday and vice versa, with Mayday even joking about not dying under Crosshair's watch, as he would only say that there's no point in carrying dead weight. Then when the two later do reach the raider base and manage to take out all of the insurgents inside, it's here where they make the startling discovery of what's been inside the cargo the entire time. Proto Stormtrooper gear. Yup, Mayday and his men have been through hell and have died all just to protect some Stormtrooper gear, of which would have benefited them this entire time as well. So if that isn't a slap to the face for the clones, then I don't know what is. Then, to make matters worse, is that an explosion from the firefight triggers an avalanche. Unable to outrun it, Mayday pushes Crosshair out of the way and the two shelter near a rock. Later, Crosshair digs himself out of the snow and searches for Mayday, of whom he finds and digs him out as well. But Mayday tells Crosshair to save himself, as like Crosshair said before, there's no point in carrying dead weight. But well, look at that, Crosshair ends up going against his own words here as he refuses to abandon a fellow comrade and tries to rescue him at all costs. We then see the two of them traversing the plains of Barton 4 and snowstorms trying to get back to the outpost. Which, this part here did make me scratch my head just a teensy bit as they're going like this for a day or so already. But how did they not both freeze to death yet is my question, because again, neither of them are wearing any proper snow weather gear, with Mayday even telling Crosshair earlier in the episode of, hey, don't go out too far or else you'll freeze as you aren't wearing the proper attire for this weather. Not to mention, Crosshair doesn't even wear his helmet the entire time, like, come on, he easily would have caught hypothermia. And believe me, I like this episode a lot, but really, they should have kept his helmet on too, as this really pulled me out of it just a bit. But once back at the outpost, they find squads and squads of stormtroopers loading cargo from the base onto their ships. Nolan sees the two return back and lashes out at them for coming back empty-handed, not even caring about their well-being whatsoever. Crosshair then begs Nolan to get medical attention for Mayday, who coincidentally ends up dying right on the spot there. Which, to be fair, even if Nolan did command for a medic to arrive right there and then, Mayday would have already been dead, which, but yeah, that's besides the point. And Crosshair has already been showing some reservations about his current lot in life after returning to the Empire. But the events of this episode completely break him down to the point where he begs the Empire to help save the life of another clone, something he would have never done before. And he not only watches Mayday die despite his best efforts, he then gets a vicious "the reason you suck" speech from Nolan that truly spells out the terrible life that he's chosen for himself. And yeah, as if Nolan was not already a POS earlier in the episode, this part right here really takes the cake. As this guy is by far worse than Admiral Rampart. Not only does he order Crosshair and Mayday out on a suicide mission to recover 2 stolen crates from raiders, then denies them medical attention when they return, resulting in Mayday's death, but then threatens the same with Crosshair afterwards, making Crosshair realize that he's wasting his time fighting and helping a regime that, if anything, would prefer nothing more than to see him dead and gone. And it's here where Crosshair ends up fragging Nolan right before passing out himself. And while I'm sure this is the supposed twist to this episode, I didn't really think so, as they made it painfully obvious of what an awful human being Nolan is, constantly pushing everyone's buttons, making crazy suicidal demands, and now this being the absolute last straw. Heck, if anything, the viewer is rooting for this to happen, so yeah, we all expected this. Crosshair later wakes up in what I'm assuming is to be on Mount Tantus on Wayland, with the Empire realizing that Crosshair served his use, and now, well, I have no idea what they're gonna be doing with him now, but even more experimentation I'd say is a pretty safe guess given the circumstances. Overall, this episode was just chef's kiss. This is what I'd say is prime Bad Batch material. And just like the Cody episode and a 2-parter Clone Conspiracy, marks down as my new favorite of the season. It's another gritty military-focused episode reminding me yet again from something I would watch on Andor. Which actually makes me kind of wonder if Andor haters will also hate this episode too, given the similarities. But yeah, I loved it a lot, even despite my nitpicking here and there with it. Heck, I could watch an entire series of Crosshair going on missions of different Imperial clones throughout the galaxy, it's just that good. And well, dare I say it, even better than the Mando episode that came out on the same day too. Heh, never thought I'd say those words, but hey, here we are. And that was my take on this episode of The Bad Batch. Let me know what you all thought about the episode in the comments down below, and if you haven't already, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one.